Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Rebecca Brown. I am the ESSER Program Manager at the Office of Public Instruction, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Extended Expanded Learning Opportunity, or ELO grant, specific to the summer 2023 timeline. This grant is being reopened for new applications for summer 2023. We did offer a more in-depth training on the entirety of the ELO grant back in January. This session today is just to talk about this summer 2023 reopen. My contact information is here on the screen. I'm available both by email and by phone every day, and I will have my contact information at the end as well. Goals for today, again, this session is specific to the summer 2023 timeline of the overall ELO grant. There is more in-depth information in the video that we posted back in January. This session today is only to cover specific information about summer 2023. We will go through a quick overview of the entire ELO grant, talking about eligibility and requirements for programs, the grant timeline and funding availability. Then we will take a look at the program scope document, which is part of the application to apply for this grant. And then we will look at the ELO grant application in eGrants. And then at the end, we'll just have a wrap up, some quick resources from OPI, and then I'll open it up for question and answer. So the ELO grant is the Extended Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant. This is an ESSER grant. It comes from the same bucket of funding that the ESSER grants come from, and so it still has the same requirements that funds be used to prepare, prevent, or respond to the effects of COVID. One of the ways that we respond to the effects of COVID is to extend and expand the learning opportunities for Montana students. The ELO grant has two funding sources. There is $3.8 million for the extended day or after school part, and then $3.8 million for the expanded year or summer portion. This summer 2023 portion of the ELO grant, this is actually the second year that a summer grant has been offered, and there will be another ELO grant for next school year and next summer as well. The Department of Education has ESSER FAQs posted that we've got linked on this slide as to how you can use the ESSER funds. The ELO grant specifically is focusing on literacy and math. There is one application for both funding sources. If you were a recipient of this grant last year, it was two different applications, but they were so similar that this year we made them one application, and you could diversify which funding or both funding sources you were asking for. The application is in eGrants. You will need to go to fiscal year 2021 to view it. Funds are available through August 31st of 2023. That is the end date for this round of this grant. Like I said, we will be reopening another ELO grant for next school year and next summer. And then final expenditure reports are due to close out your grant by September 25th, 2023. Eligibility and requirements for this grant: the target student participation needs to be 40% low income. We are trying to increase opportunities for those low income children and families. The organization needs to have at least 3 to 5 years of past programming experience to draw upon for this program. We do ask that you have an active partnership in funding, programming, or staffing in your community with other community organizations, with the schools or school districts. There also needs to be a focus on math and literacy academics. Pre and post testing of students is required so that you can show specific student gains, data of student gains throughout this program. Service delivery methods need to be evidence-based, and I've got linked some resources here that you can look into for that. Goals and objectives of the program need to connect to content standards for math, reading, social emotional learning. The program needs to demonstrate a connection to the local district's ESSER ARP plans. These ESSER ARP plans are a requirement for the districts to put out as to how they are going to use ESSER funds to help their students. And so if you are a district, you'll connect to your plan. If you are not a district, we ask that you work with your local district or districts to connect to their ESSER ARP plan so that we as a community can support our learners. And then at the end, if you did receive a prior grant, that grant's final expenditure report and outcome reports need to be completed before you submit the new application. Other funding considerations, these funds are intended to enhance and grow our capacity for education services outside of the 8 to 4 school day. You are responsible for understanding and adhering to supplement versus supplant requirements of your existing funding sources. And first priority may be given to grantees who do not already receive federal funding, such as the 21st Century, ESSER 1, 2, or 3, Perkins, etc. And then again, the targeted student population is to reach students who lack the type of supports necessary to overcome the personal and academic challenges exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Office of Public Instruction uses eGrants. This is our grant management system to manage this grant. It is an online system, so you will need an internet connection to access it. The allocation for summer 2023 is $25,000, and all funds must be used between June 1st and August 31st of 2023. So this is a short timeline because we're only talking about this summer portion of this grant. And then at the end of the grant, when you are done, there are 2 outcome reports you need to submit. The first one is the final expenditure report, and that reports how the funds were used. And then the outcome data report is to show what student gains occurred during this program, how much they improved in their math or reading literacy. The timeline for summer 2023, and again, I am only talking about the summer portion of this grant right now. Funds will be allocated in eGrants and drawn down through cash requests in eGrants. Cash requests need to be submitted by the 25th of every month in order to be paid out by the 10th of the next month. So this summer portion of this grant is pretty short. You've got June, July, and August. So June 25th, July 25th, and August 25th, those are the deadlines to get those cash requests turned in. Like I said, summer funds must be expended between June 1st and August 31st. The portal in eGrants is going to open in May. The portal will close on May 31st of 2023. We will put out grant award notifications by June 14th. So by June 14th, you will know whether you received the grant. Outcome reporting will be at the end of the grant, so September 23, and the grant cycle will end September 23. Cash requests are due no later than September 25th, and final expenditure reports are due no later than October 25th to close out the grant. The program scope document is a required component of this application. It is a Word document. I've got screenshots here on the screen. There are step-by-step instructions within each section to show you and explain how you need to fill out each section. We do recommend that you download and complete the scope document, the Word document, before you fill out your eGrants application, because the answers in your scope document, some of them can be copy and pasted into the eGrants application, which will make your life a little easier. This Word document is available by request. You can email me. My email is on the slide here. It's just rebecca.brown@mt.gov, and I can send you an editable Word document. There is a PDF version of this document in eGrants, but you don't have the ability to edit that PDF. And so I recommend that you just email me and ask for the document. Specific things I want to point out on that scope document is the file name and heading. We do ask that you name the files specifically to match what is highlighted in yellow. That way everybody's files are named the same, and it makes it easy for me to find your file in amidst everybody else's. And then the contact information is the top part of that scope document. Please fill this out with the most up-to-date contact information for your organization. If you are not a school district, this is the only way that we have to find your contact information. And so we do ask that this be as up-to-date and current as possible. Now going into eGrants, the ELO grant you will need to fill out in the eGrants program. To find eGrants, you can go to the OPI website and do it that way, or I have the direct link on this slide as well. Once you get to the eGrants login page, we've got lots of helpful information posted on that page so that you have answers to some of your questions if you ever need them. And then if you have never used eGrants before, if you don't already have an eGrants account, you will need to request access to eGrants. There are instructions in the eGrants security user guide, which is on that login page. To set up a new legal entity, you'll be using pages 16 and 17 of that user guide. I would recommend that you start this process now so that your account gets set up in time, because it does take a little bit to get those accounts set up. And then once you request access, please just email me so that I have documentation that you've started the process, and then that way I can follow up and see if you have any questions or challenges there. You will also, after you set up an eGrants account, you will need to be set up as a vendor in our payment system so that you can actually receive payment of the grants that you get. And so the process to do that, there's just a couple forms that you'll need to fill out and then submit. Again, once you start that process and submit those forms, please email me and the grant accountant, Steve Morgan, so that we have documentation that you started the process, and we can follow up with you as that process goes along. Again, this process does take some time, so you do want to start this process now so that it's set up by the time you get your grant. All right, then once you get into eGrants and you've got your eGrants information set up, you will need to go to the fiscal year 2021 in eGrants. You will scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and in the available heading, you will find the ESSER Extended Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant. That is this ELO grant, and you'll just need to click on the blue Create button in order to create your grant application. After you click create, the grant application will open and it'll look like this. There's these blue tabs along the top, and then on the right hand side there is a drop down menu where you can find your different budget pages. I went through every page of this grant in our January guidance. I'm not going to do that today, but to go through this whole application, check out our January video on specific details as to how to fill out those pages. One thing I did want to point out is that this is a consolidated grant application, so there are multiple budget pages. You'll notice that there is one for after school and one for summer. If you are applying for summer 2023, you will only be using the summer budget page, but I wanted to point out where you can find those because they can be a little difficult to find your first time. So it's at the top right-hand side of the page in that drop down. When you first fill out this grant, your budget pages will show $0. We don't allocate your funds to you until after you receive the grant. And so when you're filling out the application for the first time, you don't have any funds yet. So your budget pages will show 0. And the way that you will tell us the budget that you will be using is through that scope document that I showed you earlier. You'll just be filling out some details in that scope document as to like, what is your total budget? What are you spending on these different categories? How much is coming from this ELO grant and how much is coming from other funding sources? And that just gives us a little bit of information and perspective as to how your grant is going to be spent. In eGrants, there are object codes that are used for different types of expenditures, and those I've got on the right hand of the screen here. And also there is a more in-depth description of those object codes in eGrants and also on this slide here. Once you get your application filled out, you will go to the Submit tab. There's 2 steps here. You need to run a consistency check. When that consistency check runs, eGrants is checking your whole application to make sure everything makes sense and lines up correctly. And then after a successful consistency check, you'll submit the application to OPI. And at that point, it will come to us to review, and we will be in contact with any questions or clarification before sending out your award notification. After you submit your application and you want to know where it is in the workflow, you can see that on the eGrants Access Select page towards the right-hand side of each grant title. You'll see the grant and then where it's at in process. Again, I explained this in more depth in January, but I just wanted to touch on it here today so that you can say you've seen it. And then after we return your application, you can find feedback by using the review summary menu. You do have to have pop-up blockers turned off in order to see the feedback, but you'll click on review summary, and then you will click on the most recent step and click on review checklist, at which point eGrants will open a second tab where you can see the feedback that was left on your application. In eGrants, you may receive some red error messages across the top of the screen. Please read these error messages carefully. They tell you exactly what needs to be fixed in order to move forward. And 3 things to do before panicking and calling for help. Please make sure that you're using either Chrome or Microsoft Edge. eGrants works best with those 2 internet browsers. Make sure that your browsing history and cookies have been cleared, and make sure that your pop-up blockers are turned off. And if you've done all 3 of those things and you're still getting an error message, then you can reach out for help, and we are happy to help you. Again, we've got more in-depth training on error messages. I actually did a whole session with Mindy on just eGrants error messages back in October, and that is linked here if you'd like to watch that. After being awarded the grant, you can submit cash requests in order to be reimbursed for the items that you are spending. We have it's a 20-minute video on how to do cash requests and the things to pay attention to for cash requests. We do ask that you please submit cash requests on a monthly basis. Please do not batch all of them together as one big request at the end. Just interspersed throughout the whole timeline works best for us. And then if absolutely necessary, your application can be amended. I have about a 20-minute video here on how to do amendments. With this summer 2023 grant, we don't expect there to be hardly any amendments, but that guidance is there if you need it. And if you ever have questions, please feel free to reach out. The grant award notification after you receive the grant will be found on the eGrants Access Select page. It displays to the right of each grant title in these tiny blue letters here. We have some additional resources, and I'm not going to go into all these today, but these are hyperlinked on this slide for your reference. These are resources that you may use while planning for your summer 2023 program or implementing. So those are there for your reference. We've also got resources at the OPI website, which is opi.mt.gov. On the left-hand side of the screen here, this is what that OPI homepage looks like. And there is an ESSER button on the right-hand side of that page, and that'll take you to the ESSER menu. This hyperlink right here will take you directly to the ELO grant webpage, which looks like this. And you can see there is a big red button there that's got our guidance from January, if you'd like to watch that video. This should be able to answer most of the questions that you have about the ELO grant. But again, if you ever have questions and you can't find the answer, please feel free to reach out and I'm happy to help. And then finally, I've got the eGrants login page hyperlinked down here, so you've got that as well. The ESSER team is here to help and support you through this process. My information is up at the top of this slide, and then Wendy Fawns is the ESSER EANS director. She can help answer those questions. And then I've also got Stephen Morgan. He is our grant accountant, and he can answer questions about the cash requests and the payment side of the grant. So at this point, I'm going to stop the recording and open it up for Q&A. Thank you so much for being here today, and I look forward to seeing your application.